Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Ms. Tlaib from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. We're almost done. I'm really pleased that you're here. I had the last 2 weeks a handful of community events, and FDA issues did come up. I want to start with this. How much of what FDA is doing covering specifically food safety? I mean, how much of your resources right now is dedicated to food safety?
Yeah, for detail, I would refer you to the Reagan-Udall report that we commissioned last year that has the detailed information.
Is it like 50%? Or?
Nowhere near 50%, okay. Although the F in food and FDA stands for food.
Yeah.
On the medical product side, we've had very good funding because
Sure.
of the user fees, but not on the food side.
Mr. Chair, I do want to submit for the record an article, the FDA's food failure.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I need to talk about this because it comes up a lot. FDA right now has the authorization to regulate water to keep deadly toxin out of produce, right?
The water is actually a mixed, we regulate bottled water. The water supply itself is regulated by EPA, as just noted. Water on farms, as it goes from where cattle may be, for example, to plants, that's an area that
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm going to read from the article. I think this is important just as background. And I know it was like a couple months maybe after you got confirmed. Quote, by the time FDA officials figured out it was spinach that was making people sick in 10 states, sending 3 people into kidney failure, it was too late. It was mid-November 2021, and the packaged salad's short shelf life had passed. There was no recall. By the time FDA officials got inspectors on the ground, spinach season was over. The fields and the production facilities were empty, which made it impossible to pinpoint the source of contamination. What caused the outbreak was likely never fixed. Have we fixed this kind of issue? Again, what was suspected because of previous kind of contamination, it is the food, it could be the water that's used to, that touches the food, used to clean the produce.
When you say, is it fixed, what I would say is the Economist rated the U.S. food safety as tied for first in the world, but is it completely fixed?
Yeah,
of course not.
I work on Get the Lead Out Caucus. My colleagues know I'm a leader on this issue around quality of water. I want to help you. This is more me trying to show my colleagues that if we really cared about food safety, which every single one of our constituents doesn't use every single medication that everybody talked about, but they sure heck gather produce, touch the food industry in every way. And so I just want to get to the bottom of what we can do together to ensure that you have authorization to oversee water quality that touches our food.
All right, we're just finalizing now. There are 10 rules of FSMA, food safety modernization.
Yes.
The agricultural water rule is one that's very pertinent, and it has to do with what farms should do. For example, if there are cattle upstream from where the produce is. And so, there's a list of things we need. We can be in touch with your staff.
So we don't really have anything right now that gives you any authority over water, the use of water on produce?
Only in reaction to what happens, but not...
So after contamination?
Yeah, not preemptive.
Okay. Well, that's important for us to know, and I hope the chair and I and others can work on this. The other question I have, and it's regarding food too, and I'm sorry, I know your medical background, but food is so incredibly important here. Does the FDA have authorization to oversee food packaging, right? How about PFAS, the use of PFAS? What are we doing about the use of packaging around PFAS, which is forever chemicals?
Relates to the surfaces of food containers, and like I was surprised to hear that we even regulate dishwashers when I came in because of this. Yes, and it's a big.
So how do we do it?
We have studies that sample, but at very low rates because the funding is quite low.
So we don't really enforce it?
Not to the extent we could. Let me just say, we're going through, as we've discussed, the largest reorganization in the history of the FDA. Food is the entire focus of...
Yeah, Commissioner, I hear that we have some of the highest rates of cancer in the world. Is that correct?
We do.
Yeah, I really think we should really prioritize. So when we talk about reorganization at FDA, I do hope and that we can work all together in a bipartisan way to make sure that food safety is at the center of making sure that we have resources. Again, this is just me highlighting to my colleagues and really educating the American public that we need to do more around food safety.
I appreciate that. I do want to point out our new head of the Human Foods Program is Jim Jones, who had a career at EPA. He's an expert on the kinds of things that you've raised, and our reorganization plan would call for really beefing up the chemical safety part of FDA, because we've had a very small staff historically in that area.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think the EPA is moving, you know, it's slow, but they're moving towards trying to, again, prevent exposure of PFAS through other ways. But the fact that we're trying to stop it within water, within, again, contamination on our environment, earth, and so forth, I think we have to really be as aggressive when it comes to our food quality. Last question, if I may, and I promise this last question, you gave somebody else another one. Do you believe our country is experiencing a vaping epidemic?
To the extent epidemic is defined as millions of people, yes.
Okay. What do you think we need to do as a Congress to protect our residents, especially our children right now? And I know we got questions about it, but like, what do you think we should do? Because vaping comes up so much for all of us, no matter if we're Republican, Democrat.
Well, I think it has to be prioritized. We need more resources.
Is it the disposables? We're not authorizing.
That'll be the last question,
Okay.
but feel free to answer that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The vaping industry doesn't pay user fees, and so we have a limited staff dedicated to this. We really need to ramp up our staff. That would be the most important thing you could do, and you're doing a good job of staying on our case, I'll say that. So that needs to continue. It's part of the process.